It's Thursday morning in Las Vegas. It feels kind of strange in a way because this used to be a yearly habit and it's because it had a bit of a forced hiatus. But George, it's very nice to be back in person with you. Thank you for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to talk to the Siebel Hub. How do you feel now after 4 days back in person at an event? Have you readjusted to being...
Not completely. It's different being at an event. What was Open World is now Cloud World. We've met, as you said, in San Francisco last. It's now Las Vegas, and so it's I guess the new normal, maybe. But,
well, I speak for myself personally, but also for the readers of the Siebel Hub. It's very nice to be back in person. It's very nice to be able to connect with people in a way that is far more fruitful, I think, than most online events. So long may this continue. Yeah. But that's the ceasefire over now. I get to ask you some hard questions. Obviously, we've spent 3 days listening to a great deal of information about the future of Oracle, the future of Fusion. Fascinating keynote from Larry about the integration of the Cerner world, the healthcare focus, which was really very inspiring. And I don't often say that about big speeches at conferences. They can tend to be a little dry, but that one was quite something. I want to sort of bring us back to Siebel's own journey. I talked about Oracle's journey. A few years ago, when we last met, we talked about essentially the way Siebel has adopted agility. I think you talked about how that we had innovation and agility for developers, which was essentially workspaces and that new way of developing. Yeah. Innovation and agility for those who install and administer Siebel through the new framework of the SMC and all the good stuff that comes with that. And finally, I think you said it almost began really with the arrival of OpenUI, because that was the first move towards reducing complexity, but also making developers of the front end more agile. Where is Siebel in that journey now? Where are we in the agility program?
Well, let's start with OpenUI. I'll go backwards. I think from OpenUI, we haven't actually done a lot recently because we focused more, as you said, on the developers and the installers. So that's probably, it feels like it's settled. We've seen a lot of good things, a lot of fairly innovative user experiences come out of that. But you can never really declare victory with the user experience. And I think that's one of the things we're starting to look at again, so sort of the next generation. And in particular, I think with Oracle's direction towards the Redwood experience, that's something that we're starting to scratch our heads on.
I seem to remember in one of those lovely sort of horizon diagrams that we say this is where we'll be in step 3, step 4. When I first saw it, right at the very end of the diagram in the sort of future, you introduced the probability that the Siebel world would be impacted by artificial intelligence, notably machine learning. And I've seen some very compelling demonstrations this week of notably the use of machine learning in a service focus to extract a lot of value from information sitting in a database so that we can improve resolution, but also just a lot of companies, they have lots of data, but they struggle to actually understand what that means for their business. We're seeing notably, we've just been talking about it on the Siebel Hub, the arrival of the OCI AI services as a first step. What do you see that broadening out? Are there other steps on the horizon? Are there other usages that you can see of AI in a broad sense with Siebel?
I think that's the 22.10 with the AI OCI services is actually probably our first productized step, right? Literally, it's I think we may be at the birthplace. Okay. I think similar to what Larry said about healthcare, I don't believe that we are. We've done some things with Siebel data, with Siebel metadata, but the set of data that we have is tiny compared to what any of our customers have. I think Jason and the team were talking about terabytes of data. The American Airlines, we know that's fairly common among larger Siebel customers. So at this point, I'd say we're, A, at the beginning of the journey, and B, really going to discover through what our customers start doing with Siebel, where that will go.
Okay, so we could say that in a sense the next step is for you to listen and observe and see what the customers are doing, and that may then trigger and inspire you to think, okay, we need to pour a little more attention in that direction.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there are things, and I thought that's where you were going. With Redwood, for example, there's type ahead, and there are suggestions in the UI. So the user experience at Oracle, more broadly than Siebel, is headed towards trying to figure out how to make the application more intuitive. More
yes, there was a demo I saw yesterday where you typed in you basically what you wanted to do with it. You said update sales stage,
right,
and it took me to the place to update the sales stage, but reminded me that in order to do that I needed to first edit something else. Exactly. Whereas I'm used to attempting to edit the sales stage and then seeing the message that says, well, the dependency means you can't edit it.
Right.
Okay.
So I think there will be things like that, and Oracle is really, we're measuring ourselves by how many keystrokes we can save, how many, in how many instances we make an offer that's, is the right one, or is the one that somebody adopts. How do we make the application not necessarily a prescribed journey, but more a discovered journey, if you will?
It's really interesting because about 3-4 years ago, I think it was our friends at Soft Clouds had a demo of something very close to that. They called it cuplets, I remember, because I found it very hard to pronounce. So yes, we're beginning to see in a more strategic fashion the arrival of certainly natural language processing and obviously machine learning into Siebel. So that's something that we should keep our eyes on then, I suppose.
But I'd say it's really nascent right now. I think we've sort of been kicking the tires. We did something around process discovery 2 years ago.
Yes, I remember. Yes, with.
I think we have some thoughts around Unity and Customer 360, how we can start using AI to really analyze the mountain of data there.
That's right. I think that having discussed with someone yesterday that the challenge often with Unity is it's a fire hose of information, and then being able to understand what that really means is a challenge. So well, it sounds certainly like Siebel is in the mix, in the sense that the broader reflection about AI, Siebel is engaged in that process, which is always reassuring for us.
Yeah.
Coming on to more...
Sorry, just one close... Sorry to
Go
interrupt,
ahead.
but...
you always interrupt me off camera anyway. So.
I think it's not just that it's in the mix. Well, I said it's nascent from our perspective. I think the data, we are strongly convinced that the biggest, it's a lodestone of information that if we can, not we, but our customers can harness through AI, it'll, Siebel is certainly useful, but I think it will be, huge if that, that takes off. So I think that's something that we still have to tap into.
Well, all that talk about the future has made me want to suddenly come back into the day-to-day stuff. And one thing that we're really excited about at the Siebel Hub is we've noticed, well, it's not that we've noticed, we've signed up for a large number of these applications unlimited events that are happening in Europe. I mean, I think there's 9 different events in 9 different cities. So I hope John Bedford has made sure that he's packing light, because I have a feeling that he's going to need it. My first question is, well, I have 3 questions around these events. Number 1 is, why now? Obviously, what's the big driver for this? Secondly, are there any other events planned outside of Europe? Because I think at the moment they're all planned in Europe. And thirdly, are you intending to be participating in any of these in any way, virtually, perhaps as an avatar? Or
so I think these are sort of us dipping our toes in the water. Right now, they're only planned in Europe.
Okay.
Travel is still, travel approvals, etc., are still,
fair enough.
And as you, I think, shared with me on the way here when we first, when we weren't sure we were going to see each other.
Yeah, indeed.
It's still a discovery process, I think. So I think we're going to see how the events go. To your earlier point about Cloud World and being in person, I think everyone feels, the difference. Having done things on Zoom for it's near 3 years now, 2.5 years. So, but it's right now it's just in Europe, and I will not be there in person, but Avatar, I like that better than Zoom. But
Even so, I have to say that it comes as a very welcome surprise, and it's quite. I appreciate having, been involved in event management in the past. How much it takes for a very large organization to commit to, I think, 9 separate events in 9 separate capitals. So we're clearly seeing, and we're very happy to see that that's a considerable investment on the part of Oracle to come and see us. So one way or another, I hope we'll see you virtually, perhaps in the event. Good. So Applications Unlimited events, they're happening in November and December. One, which makes obviously the Siebel Hub community and those who are involved in Siebel feel a little loved, because it's nice to be asked. Another way that I think Siebel Hub readers and users, since a lot of them consume video more than anything else these days, is we hear a lot, and I'm saying the royal we in terms of the Siebel Hub, we hear a lot about how Siebel is a centerpiece or a central part of CX going forward. But people on the ground, people who do Siebel tools or Siebel web tools on a daily basis, I think are right to ask themselves, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for people who are Siebel professionals on a day-to-day basis? I guess I've got 2 questions. Is what does that actually mean? And the second thing is, if you were, I'm sure that you still dip your toe into Siebel tools now and again, but if you were a daily user of Siebel web tools and you were looking in the horizon and saying to yourself, well, where should I be investing my time in terms of learning? What should I be investigating? Whether it be an Oracle product, platform, or technology, or indeed, for that matter, whether it's a broader thing like, well, I should be going to understand how to spell Kubernetes, which is something I've been struggling with all week. So 2 questions then. What does it mean when Oracle says that Siebel is the centerpiece, and there's so many acronyms, DX4C, CX4U? What does it mean? And as a Siebel professional, where should we be maybe focusing our attention over the horizon and thinking this is a good way to invest our time for learning?
Sure. Thank you for that question, because I think it's one that's on everyone's mind. So maybe I'll go backwards since our last meeting, just to call out a couple of highlights. 2019 is when we met at Open World. At the beginning of 2021, last year, and this is all pandemic history here, we released the first version of Siebel through DX4C, Digital Experience for Communications Buying. So essentially, it's the first application that we've built that is a composite of a CX application and Siebel. And right now, it's Siebel out of the box, so it's not yet a customer Siebel. But nevertheless, from our perspective, it sort of shows our hand to a certain extent in terms of where we're going. So it was built because there's a recognition that, in particular for order capture, so a lot of the things around buying or the buying experience, Siebel is very strong, and of course it was focused on the telecommunications industry. What we did is combine Siebel with Visual Builder. So of course the Siebel development was done in Siebel tools still, but this application is built using Visual Builder, Cloud Service. So it's essentially a user experience that's Redwood, built on top of REST APIs, served up by a CX industry framework that is then connected to Siebel. So if you can think through the stack, I worked top down, but so there, on the one hand, there's going to continue to be through this an opportunity to continue to use Siebel tools, because as you're building the REST APIs, etc., those integration objects and integration components. But on the other, there's an opportunity to now start looking at a user experience layer, Visual Builder Cloud Service, tooling that essentially just sits on REST APIs as opposed to Siebel views and applets. Under the covers, you mentioned Kubernetes, which I think people cheat by spelling K8S because they can't spell it.
Unfortunately, nobody told me that that's how you do it. I'm thinking there's obviously a new product that I don't understand why there's a number in the middle of it. Okay, so I get that now. Yeah.
But Docker. So I think when we last spoke, we had already started releasing Siebel
yes,
in
that was
Docker.
the first container.
And I think actually T-Mobile US, the team from T-Mobile US had already talked about their discovery that they could save, I think it was 75% of their hardware through efficiencies that they got through Docker. But as you saw this week, this is now becoming reality. So, but DX4C in early 2021 was the first Oracle release, if you will, that had Siebel running in a Docker controlled environment. So that's the 2021, that was probably the major thing. This year, we released something that we call Siebel Cloud Manager, which allows you to take an on-premise instance, also uses Docker and Kubernetes, move it into the cloud, in particular right now OCI, but with multi-cloud, I suspect we'll be going many places. And then once so it's not just a lift and shift or a migrate, but also once you're in the cloud, it'll take over, if you let it, of course, your DevOps, so your development to test to stage to production. So those are probably the two biggest things. On the one hand, Siebel fitting into the overall Oracle industry or industry cloud approach that Larry talked about. And on the other, Siebel itself allowing for, just at the more technical level, if you will, movement into the cloud and operational efficiencies and so on. Mm-hmm. And I think we'll talk more about it, but I think those are the two streams that I think are most relevant to a Siebel developer. If you will.
So if one is a Siebel professional today, like you say, the chances are that one will still be doing workspaces and what have you in Siebel tools or Siebel web tools. Yeah. But it sounds like, notably, Visual Builder Cloud Service is somewhere that if you're already involved in historically building Siebel UI, you would do well to pay attention to something like that, to branch into something more user experience oriented in a sense.
Correct, yeah. Okay. I think, and actually maybe there's something I didn't cover there. We're sort of recognizing that after, I guess it's 30 years next year, both in terms of what we've done with Siebel, mostly as an employee-facing, occasionally partner-facing, and very, very occasionally customer-facing application. And what a lot of our customers have done as well over that period is reliable, is mostly well-baked, but and needs to continue to evolve with new technologies. But at the same time, there's this set of things that are happening, and to sort of underline what you just said, with user experience, be it in websites, be it in mobile apps, be it with Alexa and Siri and whoever, in automated chat, and ultimately in sort of IoT, machine monitoring and automated workflows ultimately. So I think we're sort of recognizing that we're in the middle of a sort of a two-speed architectural journey here. The Siebel and probably many other operational systems, including I'm hearing mainframes in some places, reliable, continuing to do what they've done well for many years, but at the same time, new modes of engagement. And really what we're looking at is how we facilitate that new experience layer as easily as possible.
So sure, I mean, it seems to me that basically, if you weren't already investing time learning about JSON and REST APIs, you should be, and secondly, that yes, Visual Builder Cloud Service, and more broadly, understanding how customers will have, like you say, a two-speed architecture. And if you're a professional at a particular customer, understanding where your employer is in that journey. Yeah. So you can then choose the right technique.
Exactly, yeah. Perfect.
Well, we've almost run out of time, but I got two more questions for you.
Sure.
We live in a world where today cloud is everywhere, and cloud is everywhere in communications and PR around not just Oracle, but obviously some customers are, for whatever reason, good reasons, not able to commit to being in the cloud. Where does that leave them in all of this?
So there's probably two options, I think, that we are seeing. One is something called, that Oracle has, called a private cloud appliance, which essentially allows a customer to take, actually there's a broader answer there, but let me just cover the private cloud.
Okay.
So it allows someone to take hardware that we run in our cloud and essentially replicate or buy the same hardware and run in their own data center. So it's a private cloud appliance, it behaves like, and it has all the software running, etc. So the things that we're doing to help Siebel run in OCI will all work on that private cloud appliance. Okay. Similarly, Oracle has what are called sovereign regions, or
I've heard a lot about Oracle Alloy this week as well.
Alloy, yeah, yes. Exactly. Yeah. So we're really looking at how do we make the Oracle Cloud not just something that runs in the Oracle data centers, but potentially at the country level, or
yes,
even at a
I would
data
imagine
center level.
Just off the top of my head that there are a couple of countries, or at least a couple of, should we say, national bodies that would be much more comfortable running on the cloud if it was not essentially tied back to an American managed data center, even if that data center happens to be in their country. Okay, so there are still plenty of options for people who are not ready to embrace the full cloud today.
Absolutely. We're still doing monthly updates. We're still out to 2033 in terms of the support line. And there are still, and in fact, I say many times, it's easily 100, probably thousands of times as much functionality being built into Siebel outside of our team. And those will continue. We see no stopping or slowing there. So all of that continues. But the things that we're delivering in our monthly updates are really pointed at making sure that both that our on-premise customers clearly can benefit from the things that we're doing with either cloud technologies or in particular for specific clouds.
I see. Okay, well, I've got time for one more question.
Sure.
A week like this, it's astonishing to go to so many sessions and so many keynotes and hear so much about customers doing incredibly innovative and really quite extraordinary things, both with Siebel, with other Oracle products. What for you has been the best example of an innovator in the Siebel world this week in amongst the sessions? I have my favorite. Let's see if yours is the same.
Well, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I guess, I'm going to go back to the person that I call the Siebel frequent flyer of the year.
Very good call.
Because almost at every cab, even pre-pandemic, and I'm talking about Jason Matsura from American Airlines. He was at more of our cab events, more of our roadshow events. He would literally fly to some of them if we weren't in Dallas. And quite frankly, but it was much, much more than Jason this year. I think we saw an entire American Airlines team show how they all came together, skilled up, as was described in the presentation, on a whole set of new non-Siebel technologies to our earlier conversation. And have moved both of their significant Siebel instances into OCI, took on, I'm ashamed to say, in some cases, tasks that we are now productizing, but they led us in that, on that journey, and have Ventana or American Advantage Loyalty now running in OCI, and have had no, as Jason shared, over 5 months, no major incidents. Things are running well, and we are now much closer at much closer at the hip in terms of our roadmap as well. So I suspect that was certainly the highlight from this year, and given past history, I suspect American Airlines is going to keep.
Well, as it happens, they were also my favorite. I think. One of the reasons I particularly enjoyed the presentation, not least of which was that I saw stock image of American Airlines business class, and I realized that I should be flying American Airlines business class. But was to see the level of coordination between Jason's team and Oracle.
Yeah.
This really wasn't Oracle pushing or American Airlines pushing. It was you both went on a journey together, and to your point, you said that some of those things are now productized, but to have a customer who comes to you with that level of engagement must be, it's quite special.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And Jason and his team deserve enormous kudos for producing a solution with you that, as you say, they were confident enough that after 4 days they could go outside and take a photograph of themselves saying, we haven't had any issues. So, and it's still going 5 months later.
I think that photograph, he said that they had the shirts made before the event.
Yes, it's the sort of, we won the World Series before the World Series has taken place.
Exactly, yes. So.
Brilliant. Well, obviously, George, I hope to see you again in another empty hotel room in a year's time. Who knows if it'll be in Las Vegas or anywhere else for that matter, but on behalf of the Siebel Hub, it has been a pleasure to see you again, and it's always a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you for taking time to talk to us.
Likewise, Richard. It's really a pleasure. Pleasure to see you in person.
Well, we'll edit that in. We'll edit that in later. Thank you very much.
And good to do this again. Thank you.
Thank you.